What if a 17-year-old could change the world with Google Docs and a dream? I'm Anya Khandelwal, building spaces where teens, specifically girls, dare to dream big and lead fearlessly. They said I was too young to make a difference, but I turned doubt into determination. I design not just apps or art, but moments that make you feel unstoppable. Every stumble taught me to soar. Failure isn't the end, it's where my story began. Tune into Dreamy Teen Talk Show to uncover how I'm redefining what teens can do. Are you ready to start your own journey? This is just the beginning. Subscribe to Dreamy Teen Talk Show for more.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Dreaman's Teen Talk Show, a platform where we bring you powerful stories of teens who are not just dreaming, but doing. Today, I'm joined by someone whose creative spark touches every project she touches. She's the founder of Girls Who Launch and The Young Mike, a design thinker, a Harvard intern, and someone who blends tech, content, and storytelling beautifully. Anya Khandelwal. Anya, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Hello guys, I'm Anya and I'm currently a teenager based in India. I'm 17 years old and I'm a founder, I'm a designer, I'm a techie, and I love to create with passion.
Anya, in which grade are you currently?
So I've just passed out of my 12th grade. So now I'll be
Oh.
filling out college apps.
So after 12th grade, what do you plan to do? You are multi-talented.
I think my interests are so varied and they're so diverse. It's been very difficult to narrow it down. But currently, I'm thinking of pursuing a double degree in business and design.
How is that? Like, which university are you targeting?
I'm targeting Stanford. It's my dream college. And then US universities mainly.
Wow. Then we will see you here. You have founded Girls Who Launch and The Young Mike. That's big.
Yeah.
What inspired you to start these platforms so early? I mean, how did you even know where to begin?
Okay, firstly, to be completely honest, I never really, sat down one day and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start a movement. It started with more of a feeling, one that I think teens probably know all too well, of, not being heard. It's always about others. It's never about you and being authentic. So I've always been someone who loves to journal, who asks a hell lot of questions, who thinks about the world around me. But then growing up, I noticed how so many young people, especially girls, they dim their light because they're not sure if their voice really matters. And that's what hit me. So that's how Young Mike was born. I wanted to create a space by teens for teens. It was something that felt raw, it felt real, it felt safe. It was a space where we could talk about mental health, identity, confidence, self-love, and just existing in a world that's constantly demanding something from us, right? It wasn't perfect at first. I was just a small young girl with like a Google Doc, a scribbled vision board, and a lot of DMs from people asking, hey, do you want to be a part of this? So there were moments, of course, where I doubted myself. I'd wonder, who am I to lead this? I'm just a teenager. I didn't have any funding. I did not know how to scale a community. But one thing I'll say that I definitely knew, I knew how to connect. I knew how to listen. And I think that's the first step. It's not a business plan, but it's listening about, to what teens around me were feeling. Then as for Girls Who Launch, it was born out of the frustration that I felt every time I saw brilliant girls, especially in India, they would second guess themselves in rooms that they absolutely belonged in. I mean, whether it's tech, startups, design, entrepreneurship, or finance, we need spaces where girls are not just welcomed, they are the center stage. I wanted to create something that reminded us that you can be fierce and feminine. You can lead, but at the same time, you can also be vulnerable. You can launch startups and cry over poetry. You can't be all of it. And I think that's what your superpower is. So both platforms came from the same space. It was wanting to make people feel seen. And I think when your why is something so strong, your movement already has a heartbeat.
I loved the word. When your why is very strong, This is the first step. If your why is strong, everything else will follow. You have
Exactly.
nailed it.
Wow, thank you.
You have nailed it. You have also found Design Media and Communications Club. What is that
Yeah.
about?
So it was a club that I founded in school, and we don't really have design as part of our core curriculum or like content. We have a subject called media studies, which was one of my core subjects in 11th, 12th. So I saw so many of my classmates, they were very much interested in storytelling, in podcasting, in content creation in general. But at DAV, there was no space where people could express that and, join part of a movement within DAV. And I think personally in India, schools don't really focus as much on extracurriculars. It's more about academics. So I also
Studies.
wanted to give my classmates, give them a space where they can, maybe lead away from academics for some point of time and do what they genuinely want. And that's how the Design, Media and Communication Club was formed at my school.
I'm also curious. In the girls who launch, how many members do you have now?
So I launched it like a few months ago. So right now we're a team of 3-4 people, but we're going to be hiring soon, like I think next month.
What's the projection for 1 year?
For 1 year, Girls Who Launch, I think I want maybe a smaller team, but people who are genuinely invested
Interested.
in what I want out of this organization. I don't want it to just be another non-profit or something that people put on their college apps. I want to actually make a difference in my community. And so I think within 1 year, I want to be mentoring at least 20-30 people. It seems like a smaller number, but if I'm
No,
even
it's
able
not a
to make
smaller
a
number.
difference.
It's not a smaller number. Trust me, it's not. I am engaged with so many teens. Even if you have 4 or 5, it's a lot of work.
Exactly. Even being able to change any one person's life, that's groundbreaking.
And that too, when you're dealing with teens who have a definite mind of their own,
Exactly.
they wouldn't want to listen.
No, they want to do what's theirs and they want to do something that's truly theirs.
Yes, that's absolutely right. But taken your age, you are just a teenager. Do your peers take you seriously? Because of your age, do others take you seriously?
And I think it's a very valid question. Leading a team when you're 17, it's absolutely no joke, especially when you're working with people who are your age and sometimes they're even older than you, right? It's easy to feel like you have to prove something. In the beginning, I thought leadership basically meant having all the answers. That mindset truly burnt me out really fast. So what I learned in the leadership is less about giving instructions. It's more about building trust. So I wasn't trying to always act like the boss. I've basically focused more on being the glue. I spent time understanding what drives each team member in my team, what they're excited about, what overwhelms them. So I would show up to meetings and I would say, hey, I may not know everything, but I'm here to figure it out with you. So that honesty, it basically goes a long way. And then there were also times when things fell apart. I think you're not supposed to know everything. There were deadlines missed, maybe team energy is low, people dropping out of your organization. But then each time that happened, I reminded myself, it's not all about control, it's about connection. So the more that I led with empathy, the more people leaned in. It's not because they had to, but because they wanted to be part of something that really felt real. So it was ultimately not about, hey, I'm the boss. It was more about, hey, we're a team, let's go about it together.
I'm wondering, when you enter the college, would you be able to balance everything?
Agreed. I think balancing academics is not easy, and sometimes I'm not able to balance everything. So there are days when I feel like I'm on top of the world, and then there are some days where I just instantly crash, like mentally, emotionally, and physically. So I think it's very important to admit okay, right now I'm not able to deal with this. Let's take a step back. Let's understand and give yourself rest. So I think the highlight reels, like I think my audience currently, all those teenagers, they'll just be on those those perfect Instagram places where the highlight reels show off the perfect side. What the highlight reels don't show is those moments of overthinking or that 2 a.m. spiral where you're like, everything feels too much. So what's helped me though is learning that rest, it's not reward, it's part of the process. So what I've learned is that you have to listen to yourself more. If you feel overwhelmed, pause, take a step back. Sometimes I'll step away from everything and just go for a swim. I'll write a poem or I'll lie down on the floor and just stare at the ceiling. I mean, honestly, that's definitely underrated therapy. I remind myself that, you're not a robot. You're still ultimately a human. You can't pour into all these things if you care about just running on empty. So I read this quote where, it's like, if you only have 20% to give today, that 20% is your 100%. So I think that's one quote that's really stuck with me throughout. It's also, you have to become okay with not doing everything perfectly. So if you're a teen who's trying to juggle everything, I think here's my advice. Your peace is your ultimate power. You have to protect it. You have to prioritize yourself. Your passions can wait. Your dreams will always be there. But then you can't chase them if you're burned out from running. So
Health is very important.
Exactly. Health. You have to take care of your health.
You have also explored emotional design and cognitive bias. That's an interesting intersection. And I also read in your About section that you dive into psychology behind the user decisions. So, can you give an example? How can design actually change how people think or feel?
Yeah. So I think this is literally the part of design that gives me the chills. It isn't just about making aesthetic things, it's about influencing human emotion and their behavior. For example, have you noticed how a very well placed progress bar, it makes you want to finish a task? So there's this effect, it's called the Zeigarnik effect. It basically means we hate things that are unfinished, right? Another example can be how a soft round button on like a website with warm colors will make you feel more safe, whereas a sharp red button will make you feel more alert, and it will embody urgency. So that's emotional design at work. One example that really stuck with me, so there was this project that I was doing, it's called Rakshita. It was a female safety app where I wanted to get in touch with officials and have it do, but it's part of the process. It's still in work because creating an app takes a lot of time. But so while designing this, I wasn't just thinking about functionality. I was thinking about how a woman would feel in that moment of crisis. So the SOS button couldn't just have to be visible. It had to be comforting, it had to be reliable, and it had to be immediately quick to access, right? With instant feedback to give her a sense of control in chaos when she's worried about herself and where she is, right? Yeah. So that's again emotional design. It's understanding not just what someone needs to do, but what they need to feel while doing it, right? And then that's where cognitive bias comes in too. People don't always make the most logical choices. They rely on mental shortcuts. So if you understand those, you can design in a way that basically reduces friction. It can increase trust. It can even encourage better decisions, right? So what I love about design and why it's so powerful is that it meets users exactly where they are emotionally. It can calm anxiety, it can build confidence, absolutely. It can spark joy, and it can even change behavior. And that's why I'm so obsessed with design. I mean, I don't just want to build interfaces, I want to build empathy into experiences. So I think if you just ask me what's one thing that I want to lead being a designer by, I think it'll be empathy. I just want to understand people and then design for those same people.
Do you have any online portfolio?
I am working on my portfolio website currently, but I do have a portfolio that is for like design colleges.
And I also read your post, I want you to fail. It's so bold and it's so refreshing. Is there a personal story that taught you that from failure you learn something? Because teens often they feel depressed when a failure strikes. So it was kind of a complete shift of perspective.
Yeah.
Personal example.
Absolutely. The header was basically like, I want you to fail. Failure is the condiment that gives success its flavor. And honestly, mine's got some serious spice. So talking about failure, it takes me back to when I first started playing basketball. I hated basketball when I first saw it. And I was always a football girl at heart. I mean, I just couldn't wrap my head around the idea of using your hands to touch the ball. So basketball felt extremely weird to me. But I've always craved new experiences and challenges. I always love to, do something that's new, something that's going to add to my personality. So first day in my basketball class, it was I had absolute anxiety because I had no idea what I was doing. I kept trying to avoid touching the ball. And then every time I did try, I'd fumble, I'd fail. And probably I spent like the first 15 days failing. I mean, every single day I would fail and I would still get back to it. But like, here's the kicker: failure, it doesn't have to be final. I could have easily walked away on the first day and then told myself, hey, this isn't for me. But then I didn't. I kept pushing through even when it felt like I was going backwards. I kept telling myself, I'm not quitting this. I'm going to learn. And then over time, that failure turned into growth. So by pushing through, I not only got better, I became a part of my school's, I was part of my school's basketball team. I qualified for Maharashtra districts. And then I even played for my school's nationals. So honestly, I think every mistake, every failure, it taught me something new about perseverance, about technique. And I think what's most important is to keep going even when you feel like all the odds are stacked against you, right? I mean, I think as teenagers, we already overwhelm and, we stretch things out like, this is the end, I have failed, there's nothing else left to do. But I think you have to always try to find out the positives in whatever and understand what can I learn out of it.
You are a very strong inspiration.
Thank you. Oh my
It's
God.
such a
Thank you.
fresh perspective. What advice would you give to other teens who think that they are too young or it's too early, it's too difficult to start? Or they think I'll be doing it when I'm 20, when I'm 25, or when I'm 30. Then is the time. It's my teen years. I should just enjoy and focus on my academics.
I love that you brought up this question because honestly, as a teenager, when you're trying to balance so much, I think failure, it's not the enemy. It's one of the best mentors you'll ever have. You have to be willing to listen. So, like, if we take basketball, for instance, those first few weeks, I mean, I could have just been like, no, this is not for me, I'm giving up. But no, that mindset of not walking away the second something gets uncomfortable, I think that's everything. I mean, I'll repeat myself, not walking away the second something feels uncomfortable. This is one of the biggest lessons I've learned from failure is key. You can't just step up and leave because sometimes there'll be times in your life when you don't have the option of leaving. You have to persevere. So if you put yourself in the habit of persevering and doing uncomfortable things, it will definitely lead to failure, but then it will also lead to growth in the most unexpected manners. So I think one main thing for teenagers, what I'd like to say is that, we grow up with this silent pressure of, getting it right the first time, right? Whether academics, starting a project, or even showing up on social media, there's this fear where you're like, I'll look stupid, I'm falling short of other creators, right? But the truth is, people who go the farthest, they aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who will fail, who will keep failing, who will fail fast, but they'll learn even faster. So if you're struggling with failure, I think you should ask yourself this, that what if me failing at this isn't the opposite of success? What if it's the beginning of it? I mean, I think that's one question that changed everything for me.
The fire in your voice when you talk about failure and growth is really inspiring. You have lived it.
I definitely have. I mean, other than basketball also.
Because the important thing you said is the moment it gets uncomfortable, don't quit. That's most people, not just teens, adults also. When it gets uncomfortable, we just think it's better to look at the exit door. Maybe I will start somewhere. It's not for me.
Exactly,
You are
absolutely.
not falling into that trap.
I mean, I think I have been in that trap, and so I have that, the lessons from that to support me now going forward.
That's really fresh. Now, before we wrap up, we have a rapid fire round.
Okay.
In this, no thinking, just speak what comes to your mind.
Okay, sure.
One word to describe yourself.
Curious.
Cool. A book or a movie that changed your mindset.
That is amazing.
Any artist from past or present you would like to meet in person? Van Gogh. What do you do when you feel stuck or low?
I think take a step back, do a life audit, and then get back into it.
What would you do if you had all the money in the world?
If I had all the money in the world,
Everything belongs to Anya.
Everything belongs to me. First of all, I think, wow, I've never really thought of that. If I had all the money in the world, I would set up my dream business and donate half of it.
Half of it to
charities. I mean, I haven't thought of it, but I think to the underserved communities.
For yourself, you would only invest in your business.
I would invest in myself and then I'd become the business.
Okay. You have any dream destination?
Dream destination? Oh wow, Fiji.
Wow,
And that's very random, but
it's a
it's
very
beautiful.
beautiful place. What's the one thing you would do if you knew you could not fail?
I'd start traveling the world and do the most unexpected experiences and the most unexpected, like jump off a mountain and stuff.
Nice. That's nice. That's really cool. Very good. So we'll wrap up here. Anya, thank you so much for being with us today. Your journey is packed with lessons, creativity, leadership, and most of all, embracing failure. And I'm sure every teen watching this has taken away something valuable.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone who's listening. Thank you for inviting me on this show. I had so much fun answering these questions and especially the rapid fire round. Yeah, I think everyone's going to love this episode.
Thank you so much, Anya. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
To our viewers, if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Dreaman's Teen Talk Show. We'll be back with more inspiring teens like Anya who are reimagining what's possible. Until next time, stay curious and keep creating.